All right, apologies for the delay for those of you who are anxiously anticipating the dozens upon dozens, maybe even hundreds, Todd, hanging on the NBC
Thousands. Come on, don't sell us short.
San Diego YouTube channel, waiting for us to get started. Apologies for the delay. Excited to be with you. Todd Strain was doing some gallivanting with some folks down in Little Italy. San Diego FC, Tijuana Cholos collaboration, 5
Yeah,
years of friendlies, community partnerships, lots of good stuff.
it'll be awesome. You obviously got the details. 5 years of friendlies at Snapdragon Stadium. Maybe in the future, some SDFC going south of the
They
border
got
to
to. They have
Club
to.
Tijuana. That'll be
They have
awesome if
to.
they actually get down there. So
Got to
yeah.
happen. So a busy day. Wanted to get started a little bit earlier, but glad that we are with you now and appreciate you hanging out with us as always. And boy, there are some things to discuss. Things got
You
strange.
think?
Things
You
got
think?
strange Wednesday afternoon. Is it a good thing
Oh
or a
man.
bad thing that we are talking about what the manager said as opposed to what the team did? We
I
can
would.
discuss that. I'll let you think about that. We can discuss that. We've got a lot to talk through, both in
Yes.
terms of what we've seen from the Padres. Did they play poorly? Did they just get beat? Is that baseball? Was Shildt right? Why is he getting so defensive? It's mid-May. If
Pesty
they're
Shildt.
if they're 2 games under 500 and this line of questioning continues through September, like, I'm worried about the guy because he's pretty fired up in mid-May, and I don't think we need to be I don't think we need to have that type of energy, but that's just me. So we will discuss that on this off day edition Thursday night on Friar Podcast, brought to you by NBC7. Todd Strain, Darnay Trip. Thanks to OG's, the sponsor of the On Friar Podcast. Great place to watch your sport of choice. Padres games, obviously. 7-game road trip, so you can't see them at Petco over the next week. So you can catch the games at OG's, starting with the Braves series Friday through Monday. Xander Schauffele in contention, PGA Championship, 62 at Valhalla. Bogey-free round. Very, very impressive from Xander. So you could watch his pursuit of a first career major. What do we have? NBA playoffs.
Ooh, that now you're talking my
Game
language, Darnay.
7. Yeah.
Yeah,
Ant Force Game 7. What is it on
yeah,
Sunday? So a
yeah.
lot going on, a lot to watch. OG's a great place to do it. Always updating their menu. Great food, great beer list. That's one of my favorite things about OG's. You can find yourself a good beer. OG's award-winning beers, as well as any microbrews from around town and beyond that you enjoy. OG's has you covered. So thanks to OG's and all they do for the On Fire podcast and the NBC7 sports team. Without further ado, the walk-up music. On Friar Podcast, Darnay Trip, Todd Strain with you. Thanks for listening in your podcast app of choice. Make sure to subscribe. Get new episodes as soon as they drop on Thursdays, the occasional bonus and emergency pod in between. And thanks to those of you watching on the NBC7 YouTube channel, watching us live and get in the chat. We want to know how you feel about the Padres, how you feel about Manny and Xander and Michael King and Jerkson Profar. Jackson Merrill comes in the game, just does good things. Fantastic play in center field. He just makes things happen, whether or not he starts the game in the lineup. And of course, Mike Shildt. What we heard from Mike Shildt. So hit the chat. Let us know what you think, how you're feeling, and we will include your comments on the pod. And I'll start with the question that I asked you a minute ago, Todd.
Yeah, yeah.
How do the fact that we aren't talking about a 3-game losing streak to the Rockies? We are talking about that, but so much of the focus is on
Yes.
Mike Shildt because he got a little testy with
Yeah.
reporters Wednesday after the game. Good thing, or is that a bad thing?
It's a good thing content-wise. It's great. And if you've been listening to Sports Talk Radio today, even better. I mean, this is juicy.
Yes.
I don't think it's a bad thing. I think there were signs of this a few weeks ago when Mike Shildt, got a little upset, a little testy with Dennis Lynn's rather, neutral question. And Shilty kind of chased after him a little bit and got a little tense and testy in that media session. And it's come up a few times before when people have asked Mike Shildt questions that he doesn't necessarily agree with the line of questioning. He kind of takes it 180 degrees in defense of his team, kind of overboard. And so yesterday was just a kind of everything coming to a head from all those little hints we've seen before. And hey, Mike Shildt knows more baseball than me, you, most Padre fans, most people in the world. But Mike Shildt did himself no favors in that press conference. Padre fans are too smart to buy into what he was saying. The team, the players said in the locker room didn't align with what he was saying. What anybody who has watched baseball, whether it's a year or 40 years, sees with their own eyes in that series did not align with what he was saying. So I don't think it's a bad thing. I just think Mike Shildt was off base with what he was saying in that press conference. And I don't think anybody was buying it, from the players to the fans to the media. You were there. You were in that media session. I don't think anybody was buying it. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, a SoCal refugee wasn't buying it either, and one word, pathetic. I don't think he was doing himself any favors, and you're right,
Yeah.
Mike Shildt, like any Padres manager, knows eons more about the game than I ever will. It's just the
Yeah.
fact of the matter, and I mean, it's indisputable, and I'm happy
Well,
to say that.
if he didn't, they would really be in
There
trouble,
would be a
right?
problem. Of course he does. The problem is when you try to make yourself sound smarter and, in his words, rational,
Mm-hmm.
um, and kinda outsmart everybody and, well, actually everybody, and, "Well, our reports say this, and we actually didn't play that bad," and blah, blah, blah. That's where, it's I don't know, it's hard. You wanna have that confidence about yourself, that understanding of the game. When you flaunt it and push it all upon people, it doesn't necessarily look good,
Yeah.
It does come across as defensive, and the whole thing felt really weird. Like, I don't think anybody's questioning Mike Schilt's baseball acumen. Like, we get it. Like, you're smart, you understand the game, you've been around it for a long time, and you're gonna view these performances, in a different light than we will, certainly. I think you can communicate that in a way that isn't defensive and doesn't, try and talk down to people, which he did at points on Wednesday. And yeah, it has kind of taken a turn. Like, Mike has been very cordial, very easy to. And I'm not a beat writer. I'm not there every single game, every single post game. And so, I've just seen what I've seen, but I saw it in spring training. I've seen it after games, before games, that sort of thing. Very, very easy to ask questions to, and to all that, to do our job. And, much like Bob Melvin before him, he's a guy that typically has, like, he understands where you're coming from. He understands what you're trying to ask, and he goes, he attempts to answer your question.
Yeah.
But in the last week, the defensiveness has come out, and maybe some lack of understanding of what's being asked of him, and this desire to kind of push back where I don't think he necessarily needs to. And this week, to me, it started with Kevin Acee asking him after Monday's game, like, "Hey, was it deflating to come out the way that you did after the series against the Dodgers?" Perfectly reasonable
Yeah.
question.
Yeah.
Deflating to fans, certainly.
Yeah.
40,000 plus that were probably in the building that night. Probably a little bit deflating for the team. Not the end of the world, certainly. And for him to say deflating to you, we're not gonna make more out of this than we need to. When you can just say, "No, I get it, disappointing, not the result that we wanted. I'm sure the fans were looking for more, but one game, we had some opportunities, didn't get it done tonight. We're going to be fine. You could go question for question from what he got yesterday, starting with AJ Cassavell,
Yeah.
who asked him about not being able to come back. And I want to say it was something about the lineup, and then asked about, um, what does it say about the team after the Dodgers series, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
Well, I think I just answered that question. I don't know
Yeah.
that you maybe in your mind, and I know I've been around coaches that have done this, and I've
Yeah.
been around coaches who hate answering the same question twice. And that's one of the things that I learned is try, especially when you're around those people,
Yeah.
try not to re-ask the question that somebody else asked or they already answered, or at least frame it in a different way, which I tried to do at the end. Did not work.
Yeah.
I tried to say, hey, and this is 11 minutes into his media scrum where he's already been testy with John Howard of CBS 8, with AJ Cassavell of MLB.com, with Kevin AC of the Union Tribune. And I just tried to say, okay, taking into account what you said, you don't feel like you necessarily played poorly, right? How do we take those good performances and turn them into wins? Seems
Yeah.
reasonable to me. But
Fair
apparently
question.
he had tried to answer that question numerous times before and was exhausted with that attempt to answer that question. And so it didn't quite land, despite my probably clumsy attempts to clarify it to him. But he just wasn't hearing it at that point. And these things are never personal. He's frustrated, probably just with the results. Maybe there's some aspects of his team's performance that he's frustrated with that he just didn't want to open up to with us.
Yeah.
These things happen. It's not a big deal.
No.
And nobody's, I think, worried about asking Mike Shildt whatever they need to ask him the next time around. But
Yeah.
what we're figuring out is, there is an edge there, and there's a frustration there, and a clear desire to defend his team. And there was more frustration with our questions than how his team played. I'll leave that
Totally
up.
fair.
I'll
Yeah.
leave that up to everybody else how they feel about
Yeah.
that. But there's
Yeah.
clearly more frustration with our questions than there was with the performance that led to. And he admitted, I'm frustrated with the fact that they got swept, but not
Yeah.
necessarily based on how we played. And we could talk about that. There's probably some truth to that, because it
Yeah.
wasn't an all-out disaster. They weren't walking tons of guys. There weren't a ton of errors. Obviously they get blanked on Wednesday, but there were some
Yeah.
aspects of, good baseball that they played along the way. And so I'll give him that. But clearly there was more frustration about the questions that we were asking him. Whether or not that's a good thing, I don't know.
And he kept saying we played the right way. Like we played the right way. We play tip your cap. Heard a lot of tip your cap to the Rockies. They
A lot of
won
tipping
7
of the
straight.
cap.
They're playing great baseball. That's true. The Rockies played really well, but I don't think the Padres played great baseball on Monday. What they were walked 11 times, right?
And
They had,
8 times in the last 3 innings.
and they had multiple chances to get hits with runners in scoring position to tie that game or take the lead in the latter innings, and they did not do it. So when you get a free base runner, you got to cash it in. When you get runners in scoring position, you got to come through with the hits. If you don't do those things, that's not playing the right way, and that's not great baseball. That's losing baseball at any level, which was losing baseball. And then Wednesday's matinee game was a complete no-show, a listless effort with no passion, and that's when the Boo Birds came out. So for him to say they played the right way, I think most Padre fans would disagree with his contention that they played the right way, because if that's the right way, you're not going to win games. So he talked a lot about I'm kind of, he didn't use the word theory. I forget the process, I think is what he said. Like,
Yes.
The process, the process was right, but this is still a results driven business, professional baseball. And you have to cash in free base runners. You have to cash in runners in scoring position. And after you've lost the first 2 games of the series, you have to come out with a little passion and a little fight. And his team did neither of those things. So there was a little disconnect. I understand completely what he was saying about process, but there's also a little disconnect about playing the right way, and they played good enough to win in that series.
how often do the
Yeah.
Padres walk 8 guys the last 3 innings in a close game and win? That is a
Yeah.
loss every stinking time. You know,
Exactly.
you have to punish teams for that. The Padres last year punished countless times
Yes.
for giving guys free bases, free at bats, whatever it is. It seemed like that
Yeah.
always came back to bite them. And that is a quality of a good team. You punish teams' mistakes. And the Rockies probably didn't play like a last place team the last few days. That's something Manny Machado referenced and Joe Musgrove referenced. Um, but that's not to say there weren't opportunities.
Yeah.
They jumped on Michael King. They punished him for bad pitches, for getting too much of the zone. He struggled with his sweeper, I think it was. Um, Fernando Tatis Jr. with the base running gaff. I mean, I get it. There's some, aspect. They hit the ball hard a bunch. Certainly. There's no question about it. We saw it. So there's some, batted ball luck or lack of luck that played into it, but they had situations to at least get one, either Monday or Tuesday, and they didn't do that. And then they came out flat on Wednesday and never showed any fight or desire or aptitude to get back into it. And it was a dud.
Hey,
So
Darnay, real quick, like big picture stuff. I think that's why the media kept pressing Mike Shildt and why the fans were upset is because these are all things that we've seen in previous years. You play great against the teams, the good teams in baseball, like they did against the Dodgers, but then they fall flat against the Rockies. We saw it last year, Royals and Pirates. I think they were terrible against. So the media and fans have seen this before. So that's, I think, where fans were booing and media members were questioning Mike Shildt, because this appears to be the same movie that we've seen in the same pitfalls from previous seasons. And Shildt was here for those years, those
yes,
previous years. So he should understand that. That's what
yes,
makes his post-game comments even more frustrating because this is the same thing, even though it's early, it's a repeat of what we saw last season that doomed this team when they finished just out of the wild card because series and games like Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday doom the team's chances to fall in the postseason. So I don't understand why he was so defensive and did not get that connection at all.
yeah. Ryan Cohen, who always has the healthy outlook on the Padres and how to navigate these types of instances. Padres super fan Ryan Cohen, who's just killing it in New York, by the way. He was hanging out with Usain Bolt yesterday. I don't know if you know of Ryan Cohen. You got to follow Ryan Cohen. I mean, he's the best. But headed to Atlanta tomorrow to catch my first Padres game of the season, completely ignoring the last 3 games. Never happened in my book. Pods just took 2 or 3 from the Dodgers, as far as I know. Who
There you
would
go.
be surprised? Who would be surprised if they took 3 or 4 from Atlanta? That's the thing.
Yeah.
Shildt might be right at the end of the day by all this. And maybe we all look dumb for overreacting. I don't think we can overreact given what happened last year, to your point, and what happened in
Yeah.
2021. That's why we have this energy about us. If they've just rattled off, 4 straight, 3 straight postseason appearances, probably wouldn't be facing these questions at this point. But now, because of what's happened previous seasons, there is this fear, there is this understanding that, okay, things might not, things be as sunny
Yeah.
as you would like them to be, and some of these underlying issues could continue as the season goes, and you can't just kind of write things off the way you might if it's a team that has just been a perennial, like the Astros or something like that, that's just always been there. Maybe even the Phillies, it's been there recently. This team does not get the benefit of the doubt because they have not earned the benefit of the doubt um, in recent years. Another comment: does Mike really think the fans are stupid? What was interesting, and you said a lot that I want to circle back to.
Yeah.
What was interesting was the juxtaposition between what Mike Shildt said and what the player
Yes.
said. Mike Shildt
Yes.
said, "We played good baseball. I can't explain it. We lost." Xander Bogaerts looked like they had just lost game 5 of the NLDS. He looked distraught when we walked in there, and he sounded distraught when he spoke.
You could hardly you had the microphone right there. I
Well,
could hardly hear him. I mean,
I had the microphone under my armpit because I
you're
was
fine.
getting the
But
camera ready, and I'm like,
but
"Why
Abby,
can't I hear anything?" And I was like, "You
he was
dummy!"
soft spoken. You're
He was
right. He looked like he
soft-spoken.
was coming from a funeral.
Go to Marty Casbo's YouTube page to hear from Xander
No,
Bogaerts because you can't hear it very well in my video.
come
But
on.
yeah, he was distraught, and one of the first things he said was, "We didn't play well," you know.
Oh.
But what triggered that in my mind was Michael King, when asked about the booze, said, "We have smart fans." One thing I've noticed is I believe we have smart fans, and they know when they see bad baseball. There's
Yeah.
two things: smart fans, okay,
Mhm.
you have every right to boo. Smart fans who understand bad baseball, okay? Juxtaposed to Mike Shildt saying, "Well, actually, we played pretty well."
Yeah.
And interesting how quickly the fans turn.
Yeah.
I don't know,
Yeah.
man. I don't know. And, maybe you're just taking bullets for your team. And that, that's his right to do that. That's his approach. That's another thing we could talk about. I want to circle back to what you're saying just about like, hey, you've been here for 2 years. You've
Yeah.
experienced the highs. But 2022 was a tough regular season. I don't think there's been a fun regular season month in
Yeah.
totality since like June of 21.
I think you're right. I don't
And so
remember who.
he's
Yeah.
seen that. He's sorry to cut you off, but he's seen that.
No.
He's been around. He should understand why there's this angst around the team and their performance because we've seen it continue.
Well, you said it earlier. This team doesn't get the benefit of the doubt. When you look at their lineup, Manny Machado, Tatis, last year, Soto, Snell, Musgrove, Darvish, this year, Arise, Bogarts, etc., Jackson Merrill. I mean, you think this is a star-studded team and they're playing 700 ball and a perennial playoff team that just hasn't won the World Series. That is not the case. This team is around 500 and has made one postseason in a non-strike season or a non-shortened season for an extended time. So there's no benefit of the doubt. And Padre fans, I think, are tired of hearing about how great this team is, whether it was in previous years or this year, about how great this team is and how they fixed the issues that hindered them last year. And everyone's feeling great. And all of a sudden, you look up in the middle of May after a sweep by the Rockies and you're 2 games under 500. And I think Padre fans are like, what the heck? And I think that's a totally fair realization to come to after you've heard about how great this team is. And this team, the players in this locker room carry themselves like they're the Yankees of the 90s. Like, just trust us. Everything's going to be great. And the results on the field have not shown that historically. And they're not showing it this year, despite it feeling like it's going to be different. And everyone's saying that the vibe is different. The players are different. And some of the metrics pointing to its difference being different, but the results are not different. And I think that just reached a frustration with the Rockies series and kind of like everyone woke up and been like, what the heck? This is the same thing. We thought it was different.
And that's a hard thing to thread. Like, I don't know how I'd handle it in that situation, how much you really panic and what the balance is between like getting really caught up in these early season results, because sometimes when you get in your head about it, that doesn't necessarily help. So it's like not wanting to overreact, but also not wanting to brush it under the rug. Like, that's a tough needle to thread. A few more comments. JDS third. Hopefully I'm saying that right. We already showed that one. Matt saying, I think new hitting coach Vic Rodriguez needs some recognition for helping players prepare for games and help people like Jake mechanically. We don't get to say that often about hitting coaches in San Diego, certainly. And again, like, to Mike Shildt's credit, like, offensively, way more functional team. I have a tweet from a week ago talking about all their offensive numbers that are close to the top of the league. And you don't need to know much about this team to know that they weren't close to the top of the league until, even September kind of skewed those numbers. You really have to look at it like as of August to really get a picture of who they were. They've been much better. They've had more spirit. They've had more fight. And I think there's a lot of things that Mike Shildt deserves credit for. To be honest and fair, the offense wasn't really good during the Dodgers series. We've been in a funk for a week, 2 shutouts in 1 week. Not good. There is true. I mean, it's not like they lit it up. It wasn't game 2 of the Seoul series against the Dodgers over the weekend. Friday was, if memory serves, an explosive night, and they did what they needed to do on Sunday. But yeah, they've played 500 ball for 2.5 seasons now.
Yeah.
2022, it took Bob Melvin lighting them up in Arizona and them flipping the switch the last couple weeks for them to get into the postseason. But 2022 was a freaking grind. 2023 was a freaking grind. 2021 was incredible for the most part. Like, they had a hot streak in May. They had a hot streak after reopening day. Incredible moments. Played well up until like August 10th and went into the tank. Since then, this has not been a consistently fun team to follow from a fan's perspective. This has been a stressful team to follow and to root for since August of 2021. They made the playoffs in 2022. That was not a fun ride. It was a fun ride from mid-September on. And last year we know it was not a fun ride. And so that's why there's so much trepidation and concern and worry about this team at this point. And Mike Shildt should understand that.
100%. I mean, Padre fans don't want to hear about processes or hard hit balls that the Rockies caught or soft balls that the Rockies found holes for. I mean, Padre fans want to win. They're tired of this stagnation with this group, and they want to win. And they don't want to hear Mike Shildt get up there after the game and talk about processes or we're playing the right way or we have a top 10 offense or making up stats about winning series in a row. I mean, just get up there and say, like, hey, we just played great baseball against the Dodgers. We fell flat against Colorado. Some things we did in this series were good, but it wasn't good enough to win. And these are the series we need to win because it's cost us the last 2 years. I've seen it. The players know it. We're going to do better. We're going to head to Atlanta and try to put this series behind us. End of story. It's not that hard to do that at a press conference instead of what you just have recounted over and over again.
And and you can do all that. Him being snippy about Kevin Acey's question about consistency. You got off to a good start. You lost 5 in a row.
Yeah.
You won 4 straight series. You got swept by the Rockies.
Yeah.
That's inconsistent. Now, I think his point was processes, metrics, what the reports tell them. They've been a consistent ball club. I guess. But there's been lulls offensively. There's been explosive games offensively. They had the best 4-game starting pitcher run since 1893.
Yeah.
And then their guys got shelled. Well, shelled. King got shelled. Cease didn't really get shelled, but they didn't pitch to that level. They've not been consistent. I mean, like, let's be real about the situation. But see, my thing is, I think he could have said all these things, but not been defensive about it. Like, he didn't have to get fired up about it. You could make all these same points and be like, I get what you're saying. I appreciate it. Frustrating results. When I look at what we've done, I feel pretty good for the most part. And I think that that's going to serve us well. Consistency in terms of results. I get what you're saying. I think our baseline of play has been pretty steady throughout. And so I think that that's going to show itself. What do we need to do going forward? Certainly when we get those opportunities, we want to cash in. That should turn things around. I think it's been kind of a razor thin edge between wins and losses. Boom. Press conference over. Nobody's worried about it. Nobody's talking about Mike Shildt. There's still talk about Manny struggling and Xander Bogaerts struggling. Whatever. That's going to be happening regardless. But you can say all those same things and make the same point without getting defensive and kind of firing back. Firing back might be putting it too strongly, but pushing back on reporters for their line of questioning.
100%. And your answer, hypothetical answer there was 25 to 30 seconds. Maybe there's one follow-up question and he says basically what you just said in a little different way and it's done. And no one's talking about it and it's over. So that makes it's just so perplexing because he is a veteran. He's been a manager before and he's been here in San Diego and he understands the situation. So for him to launch into these 1-minute defensive, testy kind of back and forth things in the middle of May after being swept by the lowly Rockies, it's head scratching.
The
I don't know.
positivity thing, and Matt references it. Yesterday, Mike Shildt was a poster child of toxic positivity. It's funny, I was at the game, obviously, in the press box
Yeah.
with another media member, and I was like,
Hmm.
"You know what? Like, one thing I've thought is," and before I could even finish the question, this other media member said, "No, you're right." I was like, "I can't recall him being at least bit critical of the team or an individual yet." And this other person was like, "No, that has not happened." And we both laughed like, "Today should be the day." And
Yeah.
it was obviously not the case. And Schilt, hey, some self-awareness, even referenced like, that he's kind of got a reputation for being overly positive about his guys and not wanting to criticize them. So I think he understands that about himself. At first, spring training early in the season made sense. New guy winning the ball club over, blah, 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 wanting to spotlight, what his team has done and this and that. Great. Um, as the season goes on, I think there's going to be situations where you can be critical of your team's play, maybe even individuals in certain instances, without throwing them under the bus and being unfair. Like head
Yeah.
coaches have been doing this for years. Mike Shildt has not gotten there. I'm curious if or when he ever will. Um, I was told this about Mike Shildt that let me find this here. Um, he's going to have his teams back 100%. This is who he is, and this is why players love him. And so I had a bit of a back and forth about that.
Yeah.
Um, and it's basically like he believes in, like we said, the processes, that sort of thing. He's probably chalking this up to baseball being baseball. Um, and that the one thing that could cause him to maybe be more stern about his team's performance is if they're kind of mental errors, lack of effort. And there was a mental error with Fernando Tatis Jr. Has there been a
Yeah.
general lack of effort? I don't know that there's been a general lack of effort. I think the effort's been pretty good. We've seen some fight from the team. And so I think, you know, maybe we won't get that until there's a series where the guys seem to be obviously phoning it in. I don't know that we've seen that. We've seen flat performances. We've seen errors here, there. They had that rash of errors. They cleaned that up. Offensively, they've been better, but there's been some lapses. But again, he's the guy that trusts the process. And it seems like as long as they're doing that, he's not going to sell out his team. Not that it would even be selling out.
Yeah.
What will be interesting as the season goes on, if there's an instance where it seems like they phone it in for a stretch, will he call out his club? We haven't gotten to that point yet. Um, but I'm curious with Mike if or when it will reach a point where he feels comfortable. And then I think there's this obvious question is like, is he doing that because he's afraid of losing the clubhouse? And he just doesn't want these guys that know him but are still getting to know him when things have been kind of uneasy in Padres world, in the Padres
Yeah.
universe. There's been talks of dysfunction and all that. Is that his attempt to just make sure that he doesn't contribute to that at all? I think for a lot of people, that's the assumption, is just keep everybody, kumbaya. Don't give Manny Machado or Jake Cronenworth or Michael King or Luis Campusano or Jerks and Profar any reason to be like, well, why'd he say that about me? you know?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's something that I'm going to be, that I think not just me, I think a lot of people are curious about, like,
Yeah.
is Mike going to, at any point, be honest with us about his team? Because I don't know if that's been the case to this point.
Yeah, no, I would agree with you 100%. And just to kind of paraphrase the whole press conference and not just our discussion, but everyone's discussion. I mean, I think he was asking fans in a roundabout way and everyone who follows the Padres just to kind of blindly drink the Kool-Aid that he was serving. But fans and people that have followed this team closely don't want to drink the Kool-Aid. And we're tired of drinking the Kool-Aid and we're
Yeah.
too smart to drink the Kool-Aid based upon what's happened the last few years. So that doesn't fly. So we say no thanks to the Kool-Aid. I mean, that's what it comes down to. Like, you can try to spin it and say you're bank, beep beep, but that we've passed that point in San Diego, and that doesn't fly. And I think that's why his press conference got so much juice and so much play.
And another tricky thing that a manager or head coach has to balance is like the understanding of the viewpoint of the fans. And you can't put
Yeah,
like all your emotional energy into that. And you can't necessarily live and die by that. But it's important to understand their perspective and all the things that you just said.
yeah,
And us in the media, to an extent, are the mouthpiece of the fan. You know what I mean? Like they're
yeah,
booing, they're booing for these reasons. And
yeah,
how do you feel about the fact that they are booing you? You know, and so it's the quality of play, it's the response that you're getting. Like, we have the ability to understand this is the fans' viewpoint. Now, you're going to see some things on social media, you're going to hear some things that you would never ask a player or a coach. But general tone, outlook, perspective, feelings of fans that are paying a lot of money,
yeah,
a lot of money to subscribe to your package to watch your games, to go to games, to get season tickets, paying a lot of money. Um, how are they feeling? And, we have the opportunity, and that's not all we do, but part of that is, you know, bring that into the clubhouse and get their feelings, their perspective, explanations on what's going on to maybe quell some of those concerns. Um, Mike Shildt comes across as a guy that seems kind of oblivious to the perspective of fans and the viewpoint and the experience of fans. Because if you've been around and really taken in everything that's gone on, you could understand why there's booing. You could understand why there's maybe these might be overreactions. I'm willing to admit that this all might be an overreaction. We might go back and listen to this podcast in September and be like, what a couple of dummies. But everybody's having this conversation, so I'm not going to take it personally. But
yeah,
maybe we all sound dumb in a couple months, and good on Mike Shildt. I hope that's the case for the sake of the fans and the team. Um, but it's just, there's a reason why he's having to answer these questions. They're all perfectly reasonable.
yeah,
And, again, it's like the fans are the ones experiencing this and they want answers too. It's not just us, a bunch of schmucks in a room, like trying to rattle somebody's cage. Nobody's trying to rattle anybody's cage, but we understand what it's been like to follow this team for a few years, and that fans might want kind of some answers to what's happening right now, or to have their concerns that this is just going to be another 2023 eased a little bit.
yeah. And what precipitated the post game press conference and his comments was underachieving play by some of their best players. That's
Yeah.
been a common thing for the season. So I think there was, you know, there was some validity in the fans' reaction. It wasn't unfounded. There was some bad baseball, some bad at bats by some of their best players, and it was a bad series. I mean, just Machado, Tatis, and Bogarts went 1 for 9 on Wednesday in that
Yeah.
listless effort. So I mean that's the crux of it, I think, is their star players are not. Cronenworth has been a great bounce back year. Jackson Merrill's overachieved. Profar's been sensational, but their star players are not holding up the end of the bargain. And fans were partly reacting to that as well. It wasn't just the listless effort, it was the underachieving.
And on the Maria, our good pal Maria, saying Michael King's response is absolutely spot on, on a number of fronts, but certainly in terms of the booing. Let me say this about the booing. Michael King is right. Xander Bogaerts is
Yeah.
right in saying you don't like booing, play better. Joe
Yeah.
Musgrove, like, nobody takes it personally. Fans have expectations, kind of paraphrasing what he said.
Yeah.
Having been in there and not having the booze obscured or any of the sound of the crowd obscured by Don Arcillo and Mud Grant, not to put that in a negative sense. I
Yeah.
love when Don Arcillo and Mud Grant obscure the sounds of the game because they do a great job obscuring the sounds of the game because they're very, very good at what they do. But it's harder to pick up on the booze when you're watching as opposed to when you're there. Here's the thing
Yes.
about the booze. There were boos, and they started early, as Xander Bogaerts referenced, right after Michael King gave up a second inning homer.
Yeah.
Between the boos, that crowd was so quick to give positive reinforcement to the team. Ha-seong Kim comes up to play. Donovan Solano hits a base hit.
Yeah.
Jackson Merrill makes an incredible play in center field. Yeah. Manny Machado strikes out on a ball outside the plate. Boo.
Boo.
But
Yeah.
it's not like this was not fire and brimstone. This was not a fan base that just got up and left and said, screw you guys, we want no part of this. They were there. They were engaged into the late innings, and they were giving it back to the team in a positive way when it was merited. They were also booing the team when it was merited, and that's their right to do that. But let's not act like this fan base has just turned its back on its fans, because I was in that building and I heard as much positivity, if not more so, than negativity throughout the game. And it almost made me laugh. Like, they were booing a minute ago, and here they are, this loud roar over some innocuous thing that's not going to have any impact on the final result of the game, because these fans are in it and they love this team, and they don't want to boo this team. I'm from a city famous for booing. Like, I understand how this stuff goes, but I understand where that comes from, and it's this deep desire and love and passion, and you want to have reason to celebrate. Nobody wants to have reason to boo, but it's like, sometimes you just got to give it up. Sometimes you got to give it back to them, and they need to hear it. But a thing that I found humorous the course of the game was how quickly it turned to cheers. And so let's not get it twisted. This is not a fan base that all of a sudden has turned its back on the team and is dissatisfied and is just hating on this club. No, they are riding with them to the fullest extent. But as Michael King said, they are smart baseball fans that understand bad baseball when they see it.
How soft is San Diego? There's a 3-game series in May, and there's some boos, and all of a sudden everyone's doing emergency podcasts and sports talk radio's lighting up. The manager's losing his mind because people are asking about being booed. Meanwhile, you grew up in Philadelphia, where people, like, God knows what they do there. Yeah. And as you said, fans in other cities have totally checked out through the years on their teams and booed their teams and shown up with bags over their heads to games for long stretches. That is not the case with Padre fans. They love this team. They're desperate for a winner in San Diego. They're desperate for this team to win. They would love to see Manny Machado go down Broadway, Fernando Tatis. They love these guys. They like these guys, but they are frustrated. As you said, they go from elation and support, chanting Ha-seong Kim's name over and over, cheers. But then when the bad stuff happens, they were quick to turn during this series. And as we've covered, that's understandable unless you were Mike Shildt in the post-game press conference.
But I mean, there's no better tribute to the fan base than what they did last year in just a straight up miserable season, setting an attendance record.
Yeah.
And having like all but 20 of their home games, whatever it was, sold out. Like, this fan base rides with this team through it all. And a credit to the players for pretty much universally saying, that's fine. It's their right. They pay money to be here. We get it. The players at least said that. And so credit to them for having that understanding.
Well, let's take away the craft beer, take away the Hodads, the Cardiff Crack, and let's see how many fans show up.
No. They'd still show up, but don't take those things away, because I enjoy that when I show up as a fan. We've talked about the Mike Shildt stuff a lot. I don't know if you have anything else to add. I was going to say, we did get a chance to hear from Manny Machado about, his elbow and that situation. And I thought that was a pretty candid, back and forth with reporters Tuesday before the game. And so I think that's kind of, I'm hearing myself a lot on your end, by the way, Todd. I don't know if you have headphones.
Did I do something crazy? No,
I don't know. Maybe turn your volume down a little bit. I don't know if that would help. But the Manny situation is what it is. Xander Bogaerts, homers in a couple consecutive games, start to get excited about it. And then, just hasn't really been all that, haven't seen the uptick that we are waiting for, and obviously, he is discouraged, and as you would expect him to be. But the Manny stuff, he admitted like the elbow's keeping him from doing some things that he would like to do right now. It is a process. His swing isn't quite where he wants to be, but said, "Hey, I'll be there when we need me to be there." And so I think, yeah, like we're going to have to kind of view through this season through that lens. I think there was some hope and expectations, and I don't think it came out of nowhere. I think it's kind of sort of what we were told, that he would be further along than he is right now, and it might not linger as much as it has. And so that's tough. But what are you going to do? You're not going to take Manny Machado out of the lineup,
No.
and he's the type of guy that can get hot like that. Like, we know it, we've seen it, and so you're just going to have to ride with that. Probably going to have to ride with Xander Bogaerts to a degree, unless you want to play Tyler Wade at second base on a more regular basis, or Luis Ariz, not exactly known for his defense. Obviously, he can be out there, but, we've also seen him run into a couple balls, out of nowhere in this last week. And so everybody's working at it. It's hard. It's not ideal. I think the worry is, Profar really slows down. Jackson Merrill, like, these guys have obviously, when you start the season hitting 400, you're going to drop off to a degree, but you worry about all these surrounding pieces not being at the same level. And you're at a situation where you were last year, where the top guys aren't carrying you, and you need them to, because the bottom guys aren't doing anything. We haven't reached that point, and hopefully we don't. But that's kind of, I think, what makes this worrisome. And, Fernando Tatis Jr. has been an okay baseball player.
Yeah.
But not Fernando Tatis Jr., not the guy that we expect him to be. And, probably not up to his expectations based on what he told us before in spring training about where his swing was at and the work that he put in during the off season. I think his expectations were higher. And, his OPS is 100 points or so lower than his career number, and his career number factors in a down year last year. So I don't know. It's a tough situation. There aren't some real great answers.
It's not good.
Except just hoping, just like we were last year, that these guys come around. They did in September, but can't really wait until September.
Well, you're not going to bench Machado. You got to have him in the lineup. You got to have him in the 4-hole there. And you got to, as you say, just trust him that he's going to come out of it. You can move Bogaerts down in the lineup, but really, I mean, you got to play Bogaerts. He's in year 2 of a 10-year deal, and you got to let him find his way out of it. And Tatis is a real head scratcher, because coming into the season, there was lots of buzz about Tatis. His off-season workouts in the Dominican, he was right physically, he was right mentally. He had a full off-season, which he hasn't had in previous years. A lot of buzz about him getting back to that electric level, an MVP candidate, and that has just not happened. He is just not the same player that he was. Those peaks that he hit a few years ago, both as a dominating presence, he's still wonderful in the field, but at the plate, he's not the same player, and there doesn't seem to be that pizzazz and excitement that permeated and kind of you could feel through the TV, or you could feel in the ballpark. That is missing from his game. That definitely impacts the team. There's no doubt about it. He was contagious. He lifted that team to a higher level. That is not there. Machado is well below his career averages, and he is struggling big time. Whether that has how much to do with his elbow, I mean, he's alluded to some of that. And Bogaerts it's been over. We know what's going on there. If those 3 guys don't all raise their games, no matter how well Profar plays and how big of a bounce back Cronenworth has, this team is not reaching anywhere near its peak, and they're not a serious playoff contender. They need those 3 guys to carry the load, and so far they have all underachieved, and they'll admit that. And Tatis, to me, Darnay, is a real head scratcher, because this team needs more from him. This organization needs more from him. And I would think it's all there. There should be more happening. And it's just really perplexing. And it's really disappointing too, because if you go back a few years ago, I mean, there wasn't a player in baseball that the Padres would have traded Fernando Tatis for. And he is nowhere near that level right now. And that's disappointing to see as a Padre fan and someone who watches his team all the time, because we thought we had that guy. He can still get there, but there's been no indication this year that he's headed in that direction.
And we love covering him. We love watching him. He's electric. I mean, he's just a phenomenal talent, and he's also handled these up and downs pretty well, like in terms of talking to the media and owning up to it and that sort of thing. I will say, like, Tuesday, 2 outs, ninth inning. What ended up being like 6-3, I think, was the game. Uphill climb.
I know the at-bat you're talking about. Yeah.
Uphill climb. It's not like the Manny's at bat the day before, where bases loaded, you're down 1. Nobody's on 2 outs, 3-run game. Remember when Jake Cronenworth hit that home run against the Cubs? Now, I have to give Fernando Tatis Jr. credit here. He walked before Jake Cronenworth had that 9-pitch at bat that led to the home run that started the comeback against the Cubs.
Yes.
So he contributed to that with a good at bat. It's there. But you did not see that quality, and certainly the Jake Cronenworth quality of the at bat with 2 outs in the 9th from Fernando Tatis Jr. You want him understanding that he is the heartbeat of the team and that they go with him and they feed off him to such a huge degree. Like, you want him to go to the plate and be like, it might not work, but I'm going to try and make some things happen right now. Baseball's a hard, stinking game, but I'm going to try and make something happen right now.
Yeah.
First pitch, inches off the zone. The slider that he fishes for all the time. Strike 1. Second pitch. Might have even been further off the zone. Strike 2.
Yeah.
A couple pitches later, ground out.
Yeah.
Come on, man. You're too good. You're too good.
Yes.
You're too important to this team. I get it. It might not happen for your team this year.
Yeah.
But when we're talking about like process, like that, they're like that.
I was just going to say, that's
process to me.
Not good process. Those are not good swings. That's not good process. That's in complete juxtaposition to what Mike Shildt got up there and hung his hat on. It's crazy.
I might not know ball. I might not know ball. Maybe I'm missing something here. That didn't look like a good process to me.
No.
And it's those situations where, again, it might not have any impact on the final result of the game. But, like, I want to see him, like, live and die with that at-bat and not just, another slider away, strike 1.
Yeah.
Slider away, strike 2. Oh, brutal.
Yeah.
And, if Machado and Bogarts weren't 200 points pretty much shy of their career OPS, if those guys were in the 800s plus and having like stellar starts to the season, like maybe we wouldn't be talking about Fernando Tatis Jr. because maybe this team would be 4 games above 500. But he's not getting as much attention as he would, because so much of the focus is on Manny and Xander.
Yeah, it's been a real struggle for all those guys. And I just don't know. Do you have any ideas? Do you hear anything? I mean,
no,
I haven't heard anything from anyone other than Brian Kinney. he's completely off the reservation on that one. He's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. I mean, as of late April last year, Juan Soto was terrible. And it was around this time, once May rolled around, that it clicked. And so, Fernando Tatis Jr. certainly had quiet months in his career. But again, going back to our point earlier, context matters.
Yeah.
And everything that happened after 21 and through 22 into 23, when he came back and was like a nice baseball player, phenomenal defensively, but not the same offensively, context matters. And so we're going to view what happens now through that lens. And because of that, there's going to be some concern. He might prove all of us wrong. We might look like dummies in August when his OPS is 950 and he's up to 26 homers. Who knows? But as it stands right now, that's not the case. And so you have to worry. And so I don't know. We'll see what happens in Atlanta and then on to Cincinnati. But it's gonna be wild when they get back. He's gonna be here. Juan
Who?
Soto.
Oh, man. What team does he play for now?
There's going to be, well, I guess they wear gray. They don't wear pinstripes in road games, do they?
No.
So
They should, baseball should go like NBA, where they just wear the best uniforms whenever they're for the marquee games, right? Like Lakers gold against Celtics, in the Garden, whatever.
yeah.
Have the Yankees
No.
wear their pinstripes in Petco. That would be sweet.
So Juan Soto, who's having a fantastic
Pretty good
season,
year.
going to be, and so this is a tough series. It would be classic Padres. Oh, look at our buddies from the Padres wrap-up show. Hey guys, first time, long time, love the show. Keep up the great work. Oh, nobody does it better than the Padres wrap-up show. We're just trying to keep pace with John and Jim. So yeah, we'll see. But like again, we wouldn't be surprised if they turned it on and won a couple series, and everybody's feeling great when they come back to Petco Park. But you can't necessarily just assume that that's going to happen. So we will.
No,
see.
you can't. Hey, give me your thoughts. Luis Ariz. We're what are we? 2 weeks in? Week and a half? 2 weeks now?
Luis Ariz, awesome first game.
Yeah.
Not maybe, best moment of the season last Friday, walking it off.
Yeah.
Beyond that, the numbers the numbers don't grab you, especially if you subtract that 4-hit game.
Yeah.
Now, I think it'll end up being a good acquisition and should just kind of raise the floor of what this team can do offensively. But when you go through a stretch like this, as it was mentioned earlier, they didn't score a ton of runs against the Dodgers. When you're just dying for some thump, he's not a guy that brings that.
No.
He's come through in a big moment. He's going to give you competitive at-bats, which is great. He has not been Tony Gwynn version 2.0 since he got here, especially aside from that first game.
There's a lot of negativity on this podcast, so I'm going to give you some positivity. Best picture, best case scenario here. If those three guys we talked about, Bogarts and Machado and Tatis, struggling, if two of those guys can raise up their average, I think that's really when you're going to see the benefit of Ariz. He fits perfectly at the top of the lineup when the guys below him are cooking. He can really elevate the team. He lengthens the lineup. He makes the lineup make sense. So I understand you take away his first game, 4 hits, so after that. But I think once this lineup starts cooking if it starts cooking with the middle of the guys, then you're really going to see the benefit of Ariz. And when he can get up there and grind in some late key inning at bats, I think he's really going to be beneficial. And I think that's just a great acquisition by AJ for what he gave up, what it costs on a team that is straddling the financial challenges, but also trying to win now and preserve long-term flexibility with some younger players. So I really like that acquisition. And I hope as the season progresses, we can see it in some key situations and some situations that matter where we can see the real benefit with his addition to the lineup.
I'll leave you with a prediction. I correctly predicted Xander Bogaerts homering on Sunday. I incorrectly predicted Xander Schauffele winning on Sunday last week. I'm not going to make a Xander Schauffele prediction as a result of that because it did not go well. And he shot a 62 today, and I don't want to jinx him. But I will make a positive prediction along those lines that in multiple instances this series, the first inning for the Padres, beginning the game, will start with Luis Ariz base hit, Fernando Tatis Jr. homer. That's my prediction. Multiple instances over the course of 7 games here on the road. The games will start Luis Ariz base hit, Fernando Tatis Jr. homer. Putting some positive vibes into the world.
I like it.
Since I'm just, all of us negative media stiffs are just overreacting and asking these questions and harping on this and that, when the questions have been answered, I'm going to be positive, and it's going to be a good road trip for the Padres. And we're all going to look stupid for overreacting about what happened against the Rockies team that is the hottest team in baseball and playing great baseball right now.
Rockies to the World Series. Book it. Well, since you gave a positive and I gave a positive right before you, but the tone of this entire podcast has been negative. I'm going to end
been
with
real,
a negative.
Todd. It's not been negative. It's been real.
It's real. Yeah, we talk it real. I think Xander Bogaerts is going to be in trouble for years to come. I think that is a bad contract, and I think it's not going to age well. That's no wild take, but what we've seen this year is just, I'm scared. I'm scared for the next 10, not 10 years now, but whatever, 8.5. I'm scared. So we'll end this real podcast with some real quote negativity.
You can tell, man, it's weighing on the guy, and he handles it so well.
He does, and I love to talk to him. And he, as you said, he handles it well. He stands there. He tells the truth. He talks well. He seems like a good guy. But man, that is tough to watch, and you can see why there weren't many other suitors so far at this point into his Padre career. Hopefully, he turns it around. But now you know why, man. Maybe there weren't that many other suitors for him.
Well, I'm going to finish with a positive.
Oh, I love you. I love you.
And double back on my prediction that I nailed last week and say Xander Bogaerts is going to homer primetime national TV against the Braves on Sunday. So there we go.
Book it.
Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Hope you enjoyed it. This was fun, Todd. I needed to have this conversation, so I enjoyed it.
More Mike Shildt press conferences.
I'm sure it's a long season. Who knows? Who knows? It's mid-May. It's mid-May. It's like 180 games left. It's mid-May.
Don't you just real quick? Why is this team so hard? Why does this team make it so hard? Why is it always painful? Just have fun. It's professional sports. Cheer on your team. Watch the team have fun. For some reason, there's so much dialogue and dissection about this Padre team, and the players and the management, the front office seem to add to that. I don't get it.
Because we can't get September of last year. There's a lot of comments about Bogaerts in the chat.
Sorry to bring it up.
I don't want to make that comparison. I don't think it's going to go that way to Trent Grisham. I don't want to put that on Xander Bogaerts. But I because they don't have a month like September like they had last year in the middle of a season since 2021. It's the last time they had a month like that in the middle of the season. And when they did it last year, it was over. It was done. And that's why it's such a grind, because we will have a couple good weeks. We'll have some good series. Dodgers, amazing. This is awesome, blah, 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 blah. But then as soon as I actually thought this, I think Sunday going into Monday, this is probably the best the fan base has felt in a regular season, taking away the last couple weeks of 2022, since then, and certainly 2021. And then what do? They get swept by the Rockies. So that's why it's such a grind. There's no sustaining anything. And it makes it so difficult. Everybody wants to get on board and get excited about it and feel good and believe. But in order to do that, you have to have more than 4 straight series. You need can you go 16-12 in a month and then go, can you have a 15-win month and a 17-win month and a 6? They just never stack these together. It's all this. And so all this equates to what? 500 baseball team.
I want to go to Petco Park, and I want to talk about whether I should have a Coors Light, a Michelada, or a 394. I don't want to talk about what can I get if I trade Xander Bogaerts to the Indians, or why my managers, why
the Guardians. The Guardians don't exist anymore.
Sorry, the Guardians. Why does the fan base never like the managers, and why are the players? I just want to root for a team, cheer for a team. Talk about who we're going to get at the trade deadline in early August.
Yeah,
map out some.
Because you're going to be a buyer. Because you're going to be a buyer, not a seller.
Gosh.
To answer your question, you get a 394. Okay, you get a 394.
Or you get all 3.
Or you get all 3.
Thanks,
everybody.